Today on the Plant-Based Business Hour, I want to bring on my guest. It is with huge emotion and joy that I bring the author of Animal Liberation. It is having its 50th anniversary celebration, and so much so that the author, Peter Singer, here with me today, is putting out the next edition of Animal Liberation. It's called Animal Liberation Now, and it is out today, May 23rd. Peter, thank you for being with me. I mentioned a term before, and maybe we should go back and define it for people. I mentioned speciesism, and I wondered if you could share with us what exactly that is.
Yes, certainly. Speciesism is a term that was actually coined by somebody I knew in Oxford, Richard Ryder, and I popularized it in Animal Liberation, which is intended to make the analogy between those other isms that, as we've been saying, I think we have moved beyond, at least in terms of our ethical acceptance, even if we haven't moved beyond them in practice. But racism and sexism would be the big examples, right? There are relatively few people who will openly now say, yes, I'm a racist. I think it's right to be a racist. So what is racism? Racism is the domination of by one race of other races over whom the dominant race has power, and it then uses that power to its own advantage to exploit the races over which it's dominant. Most obviously, of course, in terms of slavery and the dominance of Europeans over Africans. And then it develops an ideology to justify this, because we've been talking just now with animals about the cognitive dissonance that you feel if you know you're going to eat a being with deep emotions and a capability to live a good life. Well, similarly, if you know you're enslaving a person who is really very like you and who is going to suffer by being captured and taken away from family and transported in horrendous conditions across the Atlantic and then made a slave, you would feel bad if you thought you were doing that to somebody just like you. So you develop this ideology that they're inferior, they're different, or maybe that God entitled us to do that. That was part of the belief of the slavery too. They found passages in the Bible that they thought justified them enslaving other races. And so the point about speciesism is to say this is a similar phenomenon. This is a dominant group that is exploiting another group and developing an ideology, sometimes religiously based, because people have quoted this verse in the Bible about God giving us dominion over the animals, and they've interpreted it as if that means God doesn't care what we do to animals, we can do what we like to God's creation. Sometimes based on, pseudoscientific claims about they're inferior to us in various respects. They don't feel things like we do. So that's the point of the analogy, to say we really are not entitled to treat animals just as things for us to benefit from. We just happen to exist alongside other species, other sentient beings on this planet. They were not given to us for any particular purpose, and so we should treat them as we would treat beings of our species, with similar, with the emotions and the feelings and the capacities to suffer that they have, and we should not discount that or ignore their suffering and their capacity for well-being simply because they're not members of our species. That's the essence of rejecting speciesism.
And I think it's something anyone who's ever had a dog or a cat can easily relate to. You can see the emotional range of these animals, and you see the cognitive dissonance in saying, legally, I won't do this to my dog, but legally, it's okay to do this to a cow. Pigs, as many know, are much smarter than dogs. They sing to their young. Chickens can remember 100 faces and 100 names. I can't even remember 100 names. Chickens can do that. So, you see the emotional and cognizant capability of the animal